So if you're a Nintendo Switch fan like I am right now, there is a ton of reason to be excited as we are just months away from some major releases on the platform, and we have to talk about what's happening with sales of games that we typically do not see sell this well, and that's Metroid Dread and the trickle effect that it's even having on some legacy Metroid titles. Then we also have to talk about a major deal that Nintendo has signed into effect that could have some promising games coming to the Switch in the future. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below. Hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, the first thing we are talking about in the video is a series that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is the Metroid series, as we obviously have Metroid Dread set to release in October, and we are seeing a bigger media push from Nintendo than we've just about ever seen them focus on for a Metroid game, and I think that that speaks a lot of how they feel about this title and how pivotal it is for the future of the Metroid series, as we did see this as one of the primary games that they focused on at the Treehouse, and they had some incredible gameplay moments. I am super pumped for this 2D action platformer, or 2.5D with some 3D cutscenes in there. Like, I could not be more pumped. I know there's a lot of discussion around the $60 price point, but I don't think that that's going to stop this game from selling incredibly well, as we have it listed as like the #1 bestseller for Amazon video games, the #1 most pre-ordered game from GameStop, and then now you're even seeing an effect that it is having on previous Metroid titles. And obviously this is the hardcore Metroid fan base that is, primarily going in and downloading these, but we do have some screenshots basically showing that the Wii U eShop, which if you don't know is still alive and working, and you can go in there and download games, and it actually has some of the best pricing if you're trying to get caught up on these Metroid installments, and you can play the mainline Metroid games all on the Wii U. Now, why we can't do that on the Switch is a whole different topic for another day, and it's kind of ridiculous that we have to go back to a less successful platform to play some of these things, but that's neither here nor there. You basically have Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, and even Metroid Prime Trilogy all selling in the top 5, or actually you have 1 and 2 for Fusion and Zero Missions, and #4 best selling for Metroid Prime Trilogy. But that is super exciting to see, as Metroid is a series that deserves way more love than it gets, and that's why it has such a hardcore fan base that has not let it be forgotten over all of these years, while Nintendo has literally skipped entire consoles without putting out a Metroid game like the N64, and then it comes back later on and has some fantastic games on the GameCube, and then we see no more love on, the Wii U had no really first party Metroid titles that were developed. We've been waiting for Prime 4 footage this entire time, but Dread has this series actually revived and being talked about in the mainstream news again, which is extremely exciting to see. And I think it's an indicator. You can go back and forth and say this is only the hardcore Metroid fans, but I think this is an indicator and how much Nintendo is hyping this game, and how many new fans are talking about playing this Metroid title for the first time, and this being their first exposure to the series. And now you're seeing the older games sell. One game I forgot to mention is actually Metroid Samus Returns on the 3DS, also topping the 3DS Amazon sales chart. So you're seeing this game really take the exposure of the Metroid series to the next level, and all of this hype just months before the release, I do believe, will make Metroid Dread the best-selling installment in the franchise. And I think that only makes sense, as the Switch is the strongest selling console that Nintendo has had besides the Wii. But the thing about the Wii is that it's one of those consoles that had a lot of casual shovelware. You had grandma and grandpas picking up the Wii just to play through, Wii Sports, and that was really all they were using it for. The Switch has an 85+ million unit install base that has a bunch of hardcore titles. You have like the likes of Legend of Zelda, Mario, and Pokemon, and Animal Crossing, all in the 20 to 30 million unit range, which is just insane, and you've almost never seen anything like this on a Nintendo console before. Maybe the original NES back in the 80s, you could into the early 90s, you could argue, but this is really new territory for Nintendo. And I think that kind of install base, mixed with Metroid Dread, and mixed with Nintendo's even own Twitter account hyping this thing up daily, and even changing their icon to the Samus new suit that we're going to see in this game, I think all of that stuff points to Metroid Dread carrying this series to be the most successful installment in Metroid so far. And I think that over 3 million mark is going to happen. And then, if you keep up with online gaming news YouTubers, you'll know that our good friend friend RGT85 will have to play Balan Wonderworld and make a video on it, which is just another funny bet that they have going on between the Spawncast crew. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I do think that that's going to happen. That's just my 2 cents on the whole deal. I think we're going past 3 million units. I could really see it being 3 to 5 in the first year. Now that's obviously all speculation, but if you look at the hype and the word of mouth that's going to be being pushed behind this game, I do think that this is the best shot that we have at Metroid really going into new sales territories. And then what does that do? That just props up Metroid Prime 4 to be that much more successful, as you now have a whole new generation of fans that are familiar with what Metroid gameplay has to offer and the exploration, and then take that into the 3D world, where I do think that Nintendo will still deliver us Prime Trilogy before we see Prime 4. So if we get Prime Trilogy on the Switch, which by the way is the number 4 most selling title on the Wii U eShop right now for only 20 bucks, which is crazy by the way. So if you have a Wii U sitting there, hook it up and download Prime Trilogy if you're not willing to wait for it to be, you know, HD remastered on the Switch. But I do think that we see Prime Trilogy get released. I think that they do a full marketing hype into that, and then Prime 4 takes over as probably the next best Metroid selling game after we get past the initial sales of Dread and all of this. So I do think that Prime 4 will take it to another height, but it is really exciting to see this kind of mainstream push around Metroid. So I do want to know your guys' thoughts on this entire discussion, if you think this will be the best selling Metroid yet, and if you're also planning on picking up Metroid Dread, and if it'll be your first game in the series or not. So make sure you leave that in a comment down below. And then the other real big news we're talking about today is the fact that Nintendo has entered an agreement with Forever Entertainment around a financial backing deal and a partnership. And the first thing I want to do is read through the article so you have all the exact details, and then I'll share my thoughts on exactly what I think this means for the future of certain Nintendo Switch titles or remakes that we may see come to the platform. Nintendo to give Forever Entertainment significant financial support in new publishing deal. Forever Entertainment SA has announced a new publishing deal with Nintendo, which will see the studio receive financial backing to launch several games on Switch. Details of the agreement have been shared in a new report filed today, 22nd of June. It notes that Forever Entertainment will be granted significant financial support from Nintendo to release several titles on the Nintendo Switch. Release dates for these games will be communicated in separate ongoing reports. Forever Entertainment has already released lots and lots of games on the Switch, including last year's Panzer Dragoon remake, which in our opinion sadly didn't nail the landing. Of course, the company has also recently teamed up with Square Enix to remake several games from the same as yet unannounced series. It certainly sounds busy. So I really just think this is good news overall for the Nintendo Switch library of games, and I think it's something that we will continue to see Nintendo expand partnerships and relationships with big checks that they can write because of the Switch install base and because of the future of the console, and it only being halfway through its life cycle and already being this successful. I think that Nintendo only goes deeper with these developing partnerships, and we see more and more games come to the Switch. And even if they're not technically first party Nintendo, they can definitely license out, you know, all of their different assets and IPs, and this may be another way to get more DS or 3DS style games that are more kind of your, what you could argue what would be a handheld game onto the Switch, and you know, maybe get some new light from series that we otherwise wouldn't see make it to the Switch. And I do think that Nintendo's obviously, you know, from their investor meetings and different reports we've covered here on the channel, they're spending more in research and development than ever before. They've even talked about if it makes sense to acquire companies based off their technology patents and things that they have to offer, that they will do that. And this is just another step in that direction for Nintendo to build their brand overall and to actually just have a more successful library on the Switch console. And you know, there's even talks obviously that Nintendo's planning something with Microsoft. We thought we would get more information around that at E3. We haven't really seen anything significant come up just yet, but I do think that Nintendo's going to continue to make partnerships with companies that make sense for them, and this is just another step in that direction. But at this point in the video, guys, I want to know your thoughts on everything that we talked about today. Share with me if you're planning on picking up Metroid Dread day one, and if it'll be your first Metroid game or not. And then also let me know what you think this partnership with Forever Entertainment means for the future Switch games and for certain ports that we may see or remakes come to the Switch. I would love to know what you hope to see come out of this deal and what kind of games you think that we will see from this deal overall. And then make sure you do hop over to the community tab before you leave and vote in today's poll, where I will be asking you if Metroid Dread is going to be your first Metroid game and if you're planning on picking it up or not. Thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. I do truly appreciate you all sticking around until the end. I do at this point in the video want to invite you all one more time to join Sunbro Nation if you haven't done so already. Do so by subscribing below, hit the like button on your way out if you enjoyed it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. That's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you all have a great day. Sunbro Nation, out.